Hey guys, welcome to Star Wars Timeline. Today I have a very special guest, Steven. I interacted with him on the Facebook briefly, as you guys will find out in this podcast. He's an awesome designer, artist, and so on. Steven, please introduce yourself to our audience and tell us what stuff you make and where we can find you on social media.
Hi, my name's Steve. I'm Steve Trevorrow. I'm from Liverpool in the UK, and I basically make props, and I'm an artist, and I make props out of junk, really. And I also run a UK Star Wars costuming group that we do stuff for charity, hospital visits, Comic Cons. Many times we do set displays for conventions as well, and we perform around them to entertain the guests and to entertain the fans and stuff like that. So we do try to make it as cool and as real and as close as you're going to get to the movies as you could possibly make on a budget, if you like.
Thanks. Yeah, and fans, we basically literally started interacting just, I think, yesterday, right? I saw your post of I have to say it, man, probably the most wonderful piece of Star Wars artwork I have ever seen. It just totally blew me away. I immediately threw it in my Facebook group, like, guys, you have to see this. And it's basically, as you will find out in this podcast, it was a full-on, looks like full-scale Darth Vader suit with some amazing level of detail. I wanted to start off with some very general questions and kind of, home in on that particular design, and also feel free to talk about any other stuff that you're interested in. But my first question to you, Steven, is what's your first experience with Star Wars? When did you first encounter it?
I was 7 years old, and my granddad took me to the local cinema. It was a pre-war cinema, so it was like it was just a very atmospheric cinema. It's still there today. I still go, and it took me to see Star Wars, and it basically ignited my imagination as a young kid. And then following that, 1979 Superman, Richard Donner. And that was just basically me then. That was my life then for the foreseeable, really. As a fan, and as someone who wants to immerse himself in action, fantasy, storytelling, all those kind of things.
And I'm pretty sure, along with Star Wars, there were other things. I saw a bit of your photography on your Facebook page, and we see stuff like Commando and Predator and all that amazing stuff. So alongside, just like me, I'm originally from Russia, right? So I came to New York when I was 14. But along with Star Wars, I think the 80s was like the golden age of this, like just like adventurous, go out there and have fun kind of cinema. What other science fiction or within the same ballpark movies are some of your favorites?
Oh, that's an easy one. I've got to start with Jaws. If you are to put my name into the focus circle, the top of the replica prop forum, you'll find all my posts. It depends how patient you want to be, but you will find Jaws. I made it. The road Jaws, and it's the shark literally comes out of the road. And I made it out of cardboard. I was obsessed with Jaws, and then following that, obviously Alien. Oh my God, Ridley Scott's Alien was just another incredible movie. And that premise of fear built on what you don't see, it's just incredible. And then following that, Predator, Aliens, Jim Cameron's Aliens, expansion of that. And pretty much, you can see where this is going.
And I think there was this signature storytelling style where less is more, right? And it relied on the artistic cues of camera angles and shot and setting up that tension and view the audience trying to figure out. I mean, the whole premise of the Predator, for example, which you're obviously into, is and we'll try to show the audience. I'll ask you for some of your photography. I'll superimpose them in this video so they could actually see your wonderful cosplay. But some of those movies relied on that, building that tension and telling you the story of it, and not just showing you the special effects or the cool action scene. It wasn't just about that. There was a lot more layered stuff in it. What's interesting, the next question I want to start that relates directly to Star Wars, which we're going to start getting into, is that a lot of these franchises like the Terminator, the Aliens, obviously with the recent ones like, Alien Covenant and so forth, they have not fared as where they started. They kind of evolved and changed into something completely different. And a lot of fans were not on board and not liking where things are heading. Things became a lot more superficial and on the surface. How do you feel about the state of the Star Wars franchise in general? Like, are you still very much the same into it, a big fan of it, or your hype for it is not there?
I think what happened to me, I do, because I exist in the cosplay community. A lot of people do relate to this in a way that when you do go into Star Wars cosplaying, it is much more intense. And when you immerse yourself in fandom, especially in social media, people have houses dedicated to Star Wars and stuff like that and everything. And as a fan, I always loved Star Wars as a child growing up and stuff like that. But really, I would watch the movies, love it, and then I'd leave them, for a year or two, and then I get them all out again and watch them again. It was really love on my terms, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And in recent years, with when I first developed Vader, and it was Vader in his natural form, I wanted it to be the best Vader that ever. I wanted him to literally step from the screen, and I worked so hard to do it. But in doing that, I opened myself up to very intense Star Wars fandom, and also this wave of Star Wars groups that was coming into the UK that had that it was quite unsavory, if you like, in terms of bullying and stuff like that. It was. I'm not sure if you have it in the States there, but how they treated cosplayers and the hoops that you had to jump through in order to join these groups. And so I naturally just made friends, and we developed our own kind of thing.
So your love went beyond just the movies. It's the community, really, that you're into, you like.
Well, yeah, and it does help people's mental health, the camaraderie, the joining together of friends, and to go out and do something in a common, and be on common ground and share this interest, and also sort of like to continue being an overgrown child and for it to be acceptable in today's society, which is really, really good. But there are many, many downsides to it, and that is literally the amount of intensity and criticism that are out there, and people who think they know about something, and you know what I mean, and people going into this kind of technical way of talking about things. And hang on a minute, it's just a movie.
Everyone is a director today. Everyone has this social media megaphone. I remember when prequels came out, and I was already here in the States, and we were just surprised and happy that we're getting more Star Wars. And obviously, when they started coming out, and to answer your question, yeah, the fandom, even back then in late 90s, early 2000s, was very, very passionate about it, to put it mildly. And, people were on two sides of the fence. Some people liked it. Some people really, really hated it. They chased George Lucas off. They were criticizing all the actors. The young actor who plays young Anakin Skywalker, he didn't get a career after this. Hayden Christensen, thank God he's coming back. But anyway, the fandom was pretty critical. I want to know your unapologetic, honest opinion. Which of the Star Wars trilogies is your favorite, and which particular movie just sits, closest to your heart and to your favorite one?
It's got to be Empire Strikes Back. That's it, hasn't it? I know everyone chooses that movie, but it's just because of the shroud of darkness that encases from its beginning, and that's when Darth Vader really starts to become this incredible entity, and then he starts to become aware of the family line and all those kind of things. But guilty pleasure wise, it's got to be Revenge of the Sith, and I'll tell you why. Okay. Because when the original trilogy then finished, I was left with so many questions. Where did Darth Vader come from? How did he come to be? What is this story? How did it get to this? How did it come to this massive conflict? That was the question on the end of my lips, as I'm sure it was as many people as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then to sort of see, his humble beginnings as a child and stuff like that. And okay, yeah, there was a lot of waiting around with that movie, and there's a lot of long sequences and
Right.
CG and stuff like. But like you say, it's a Star Wars movie, and it's telling the story from where it's supposed to start.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to see like the beginnings of the Emperor and everything like that, and also Sidious, his rise to power.
Mm-hmm.
And then when in the end, when Anakin finally becomes Darth Vader, and it just becomes this darkness and this pain and this
Mm-hmm.
this tragic figure that's got the worse his life gets, the more powerful he becomes, and that makes him the tool of the Emperor.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I am disappointed in is they didn't explore that Vader was an immaculate conception. He was brought by the Force to bring balance. Okay, and that leads to this direct. That leads to Darth Plagueis.
Mm-hmm.
Darth Plagueis, for me, was someone who existed in both sides of the Force. If you look back into the literature of Darth Plagueis, he exists in both sides of the Force. He's neither good nor bad.
He's a tipping scale, right?
Yeah. So he was a balanced god, if you like, and it's suggested. And if you look at the conversation that Palpatine has with young Anakin when they're watching this dark show, was that Darth Plagueis could cheat death, and that's how he enticed Anakin. It starts to draw him in. But also that plot line that George Lucas laid down was never explored.
Yeah.
So if in these new movies, that would have if Snoke was to be Darth Plagueis in a new vessel, who made Darth Vader. He used the Force to create Darth Vader to as the only being that could defeat the Emperor, and then hand balance back to the Force and hand him the balance of power, and then a whole new struggle starts. I would have thought that would have been it would have connected the films in a much better way.
I follow you. Yeah, I think to add to what you're saying, and also the contrast between two fans, I would assume we're somewhat within the same age range, but we have very different outlooks, all of us. And, the reason that I started my YouTube channel and also Facebook group is to say, like, look, dude, we can have different opinions, but still be fans and respect each other. It's not about these movies.
Yeah.
It's the fact that these movies bring us together. And looking at the prequels, as a kid, I never wanted to find out who is Vader. For me, it was enough that he's this masked dark force and that he's this classical father figure that Luke has to step out of from his shadow to become a self-actualized human being. And when we got the prequels, I was to me, it was a mixed signal of, why are you going back and telling me the story that I know about? Why aren't you shooting the story of young Han, Luke, and Leia in the 90s, the proper sequels? And that's why I started reading the books. I'm like, I want to know their story. I understand what Vader's function is. But what I'm gathering from you is that you were kind of invested in that story of transformation of a tragic fallen hero, right? Who we see in the prequels. He starts as this promising young protege and everybody's looking up to him. And he doesn't fulfill on that promise. He becomes this Darth Vader. And my next question to you is, what makes a great villain? Let's stick with Star Wars. I know it's a very broad question. If you were to stick with Star Wars, we have Darth Maul, we have the Emperor, we have Vader. What to you makes an interesting and a compelling villain?
Presence. If you notice, Boba Fett, screen time, minutes, and yet he's just this stratospheric figure. Who's not necessarily a good guy, not necessarily a bad guy or a good guy. He's got a dark side, but he's just this guy who's literally, as he says, making his way in the universe. Darth Maul, again, not much to say, but absolutely mega presence. Yeah. And basically, he's the selling point of that movie. Because to be frankly honest, and I'm sure most Star Wars fans will agree with me when they watch that movie, is that you're waiting for that moment when Obi-Wan and
Qui-Gon
Qui-Gon,
Jinn, yeah, yeah,
they just go to it,
yeah.
and that whole sequence is literally worth the wait. And the battle's quite good, and the droid battle
Yeah.
and stuff like that, pretty good.
It was marvelous. It
Even
was
the-
honestly the saving grace for me. When I was in theater, I'll be honest, I wasn't enjoying that movie at all. It was like very heavy-handed dialogues and a lot of things I couldn't connect with. And believe me, Jar Jar Binks was the last of my problems. I did not react to him so negatively as offensive. I just did not enjoy the movie. It wasn't what I expected it to be, and just the delivery of what was there, just within the context of what the film was showing it to me, not what I wanted from it, but what's there. It was just very appealing. But when it got to the battle, you're absolutely right. Just seeing Ray Park in costume, and obviously it was a different actor voicing him, but just those very few lines, it builds, as you said, this momentous figure, that aura. They're like, oh my God, who is he? Who stands behind him? Who's training him? Is there more of these guys like this? Now let's get back to Star Wars and that amazing prop that you have made. Why Darth Vader? Out of all the villains that you picked, why did you soak so much time and effort and detail? Why Vader? What does he mean to you?
Right, this is interesting. Hopefully, you'll find this interesting. Is that basically up to about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, even before the pandemic and lockdown, I was becoming so being taken over by Star Wars at that level was starting to affect my mental health, and everyone was doing Darth Vader. He was no longer a sort of like an individual. And that's his depiction. That's his depiction in the movie. He's this individual that basically the entire Star Wars, saga revolves around. He's the focal point, but he's one person. But then you enter into cosplay. Darth Vader is not one person. Darth Vader is everywhere, and everyone is competing to have this look, and the next thing they're all looking at each other's details and and poking into the finer details and stuff like that. And the one thing that's unanimous that we all know with these movies is that his look changes slightly in each movie, and so I wanted to sort of you can't reinvent Darth Vader because that's a sin. As I put in my post, I think he's far too iconic that you can't change it. But you can. Let's blow him up. So when I first saw the Rebels episodes and I saw him face off against Ahsoka,
Yeah,
and
that was season 7, right? The final season, yeah.
Season 7, she took his helmet out, and there's this reveal, and then he heads off into the Sith temple, and then it gets bombed, doesn't it? So the Sith temple collapses, and she dies off the end of the cliff, and the Sith temple collapses. But we know he made it out, so he must have used the Force to stop himself being basically buried. And then once he'd entered that Force, I mean, you're talking a lot of rebel troops around in that area, like artillery from the air and the ground. He could, what if he got attacked as well? And he stopped a missile with his lightsaber, and it blew up all over him, and it's just taken him out. It's taken parts of his suit out and his armor and stuff like that. And by the time he makes it back to the, he's literally, and it also explains why his suit might change because he's been in many battles. It's now canon that he's been in many battles with the games and the the literature and stuff like that. So there's many canon stories now about Darth Vader's life and how he's changed. He ends up in that that Bacta tank. That I bet you he hates that Bacta tank.
Yeah, but when I saw the pictures of your work, and in a minute I'll ask you if you don't mind to see it a little bit up close so the audience can see it. But it was my first take, without knowing the person behind the artwork. To me, as somebody who studied art, I have a BA in traditional animation here in New York City. I went to School of Visual Arts, so I studied animation, but I also studied a little bit of sculpting, hands-on arts. I studied painting, you name it, pottery. So I was always, since childhood, my father is very artistically inclined, same with my mom. So I was kind of dabbling into it. And to me, I learned to understand what artistic language means. What is this particular form of expression, whether it's sculpture or painting or cinema, what is the artist trying to convey? And when I saw your piece, the first thing, and you know what, I think any art piece lives in two worlds. It lives in the worlds of its creator, but it also lives in the world of the audience that receives it. Obviously, I can't have full interaction with George Lucas and find out what's his thought process was. Or sometimes even in case of you, we might have never chanced to meet, right? But just looking at your artwork, what was communicated to me is, wow, this artist is exploring the human side, the human aspect of this monster that still lives without him. That very same Anakin that Luke Skywalker is trying to save his soul. And obviously we're seeing it within the costume frame, it's his physical body, but that little torn, shredded piece of face and that eye that you see, and for a moment, remember in the Clone Wars show, it turns from red back to normal, and it just hits you right through the heart. I'm like, oh man, there's still some good in him. And it's such an amazing callback from the original saga, and you have encapsulated it so well. If you don't mind, Stephen, could we please see that piece behind you? Like, is it possible to just put it a little bit forward and take a look at it? It is absolutely fantastic. Wow. This just blows my mind, man. And what's funny? I'm just looking at it. It's like, is it artists like at ILM? Is this official movie prop? Like, what is this thing? It is so believable. It is so much in line with the original saga. I can't believe it, man.
So it started out as just as a Ruby's license.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to basically reshape the entire mask, the jawline, the neckline. I had to heat it up to ridiculous heat, almost to melting point. Wow. And then I had to strap it down in order to reshape the neck and stuff like that. Tried to take the twist out of it, and also just shape the dome slightly a bit better and stuff like that. So a little bit of work there, and then literally took a grinding wheel to it, and then obviously in order to get the melted parts, it was down a soldering iron. So then you start to they start to sort of like liquefy all the ends and everything like that. And then what you see here, then what you've got is bomb smoke. That's if you can see
it. Looks so, yeah, I can see it. It's so realistic looking. It feels like it's been through many wars.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's some silver paint as well. And then literally what I did was I got a wet rag with solvent on it, and I just started hitting it. And then what it did was it started to cut the color, so it looked like it had been, splashed more rather than.
There is a very nice sense of directionality where the impact is coming from, and it's such a lot of times I see it in cosplay, I see it in props, when people put extra detail like scarification or marks, they're not very well thought out. What your piece is doing to me, it's telling a full story. It's telling a particular scene, what happens to him. And if I could ask you, Stephen, before you go to materials and start actually making this thing, what is your pre-production process like? Do you sketch? Do you conceptualize it? Do you type it out? What this piece is going to look like? How do you start?
No, I just go blind.
You go blind.
I go blind and just let it happen.
And you improvise along the way?
All improv. Yeah. There's no schematic. There's no. I did look at one schematic, and it was an online schematic of what Darth Vader's frame might look like beneath the suit. So a little bit like the $6 Million Man introduction. And so that was a little bit of inspiration. That gave me some good ideas. And I did look up a lot of some of the what the props were used for the arms and stuff like that, and the CG and that. And it was for me, it was a little bit too perfect. It was a little bit too. And I thought if he's going to be attacked, he's going to have parts that are just splaying out and stuff like that. So there is a lot of inspiration from those old fembots and $6 Million Man kind of shows where you could see wires hanging out and bits of servos and stuff like that. And then also I thought about, well, those those breathing boxes and all that, and the belt boxes, they've also got to power his mechanical parts. I mean, where's the power coming from there?
Mm-hmm.
So then I initiated cables that would go into the arm,
Mm-hmm.
and that would feed round the shoulder and into the chest box. The chest box is defective, but it's still working. And then I've also got leg cables that will go into the. And if you look at the photo as well, there's also some pipe work, and that goes into the bicep.
Yeah.
And that denotes brain signal and blood supply, and stuff like that, because he's a cyborg, isn't he? So there's a human and mechanical element, and then you've got to compare the pain that he could be in and stuff like that. The emotional pain. I mean, that's what drives him as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like I said, when you look at your piece, at least I see not just a cool looking design. I'm not just seeing insane amount of craftsmanship, because, when I went to art school, the way they formally teach you is that knowing the medium is one thing, right? But also putting an emotional accent to it. You have to be able to say something with your art piece. Otherwise, what you are is an artisan, like an illustrator. He's commissioned by Marvel Studios, let's say, to draw Thor, and you have done some wonderful Thor cosplays that I've seen. Badass, by the way, man. Your Thor looks so manly and pure testosterone. I'm like, dude, I want to see that in the movie. This is like, I listen to a lot of heavy metal, a lot of these Viking metal bands, and I'm looking at that cosplay like, oh, dude, this looks sick. So yeah, like I was mentioning about the Star Wars suit, there feels like there is a story behind it. But if you're going blind, if you are making it on the go, I imagine you have tons of experience of obviously knowing what you're doing, but B, you probably still stumble across some kind of mistakes. Do you actually take steps back and say, ooh, I wish I did this otherwise? How do I go about fixing it? What's the process like that?
Sometimes I can go back and go completely back from scratch and just go, what, I'm not happy with that. I need to go again. So with this though, fortunately, I've got a sort of kind of enough experience to kind of sort of get it right more first time. Except when I first did the arm and I first posted it, it was a sleeve to about here, and I thought it doesn't go to there. It's all the way. It's basically cut off, and it's got a joint here which is fused into his bicep. So it has an elbow joint. So then I thought, I've got to do the elbow joint, and I've got to make prosthetic skin to raise around the arm, and then I can paint in the metal joint, darken it up, like black either side, to make it look like where the arm looks fused into the metal. And then I can protrude all the pipes and wires and make it look and also when you use PVC, when you use PVA on your skin, it starts to crease and gather, and it looks like and you can also pull it and it snaps back, and then and simply then I use it for zombie injury and stuff like that, and then you can make it look like ripped, torn skin. And so, yeah, and also I have to get rid of this. I have to get rid of the tattoo as well. So I did an injury there to get rid of the tattoo.
Yeah, it's also very interesting that you're describing this. That you're going back not because simply you're dissatisfied, but you want to be faithful to the source material, actually to understand how the suit, how everything functions. Steven, let's say Disney and Lucasfilm is making a new trilogy, and they saw your work and they say, oh my God, we want Steven to come in and do work for us. What would get you the most excited to work on, whether it's to create a brand new villain or work on creature design? What do you feel you would be most interested in working from, 9 to 5, doing for 3-6 months period nonstop for a full production movie?
I think the first thing, it would be villain creature. It would be all that villain creature set design, set pieces, and stuff like that. And also, but you've got to know the story. You've got to know where these creatures are coming from. You've got to know what compels them. You've got to know what direction they're going in. And also, is that me and the guys in the group, we sit down and we just chat about what we want to do, what we want to see. And I've said to these guys, you don't think George Lucas doesn't sit down with his writers? They all got a cup of coffee on the go, and they're all just literally bouncing ideas off each other, and that's how it's born. That's how it's literally that's how it's born, because Lucas still has regular meetings with other directors, Steven Spielberg, and they still talk, and they still bounce ideas off it, because it's in the blood. They can't help it. It's there. There's always something thinking on like George Lucas visits the set of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Because and Spielberg, when Spielberg was looking for, I mean, look at all the Easter eggs in E.T. To Star Wars, and you can pick out the toys that you had in your bedroom from that movie. And also the Poltergeist, another one. All his figures are flying around.
I'm currently reading. I have this special edition, the books of the Ralph McQuarrie, the work of Ralph McQuarrie, obviously through the entire trilogy. And as a lifelong Star Wars fan, I thought I had an idea who he is. We obviously know he did the concept art, but when you start reading those books, you realize that he is as much of a Star Wars creator as John Williams, as George Lucas, as the guys at ILM. That there's a name behind the big movie, but as an artist, you understand that it's a collaborative process. Yes, in the old days, right, you had a director who steers the ship. He says, I want this, I want that, I don't like this, this needs to change, R2-D2 needs to look like that. George Lucas, as described there, he always had the final say. But it's people sparking his imagination and help him steer and navigate that idea to full fruition. So, when you watch the original trilogy and you watch the prequels, to me personally, I see in the original trilogy a work of a group of artists working together to try to, iron out this thing to perfection and try to make it as best as they could. And I felt that in the prequel movies, and there's a lot of things that I like about them. I don't mean to be a super harsh critic. That people who watch my channel, they know I have a lot of issues with those films, but I also have issues with sequels as well. Big deal. There's a lot of novel and interesting ideas there, but I felt that the prequels were done by George Lucas in being in creative isolation. He's like, no, it's just going to be me. I'm tired of listening to Hollywood, to the rest of these people. I want it done my way. I know what I'm doing. What do you personally feel? What is the best success story for a movie? Like, I don't know if you've seen the recent Dune movie. Have you?
No, I haven't. I will see it. I think for me, it's Sylvester Stallone trying to get Rocky going. And he would not back down, and he would not give up on his script, and he would not. They didn't want him. They wanted him to sell the script. $20,000 they offered him, and
then the story was his dog, no. Right? How he had to sell his dog and try to get it back.
Yeah, but kiss the dog, and that story and that whole. So there's literally a real life Rocky story going on for him to try to get this. Movie onto screen, and for him to direct and for him to star in it, and for him to have they wanted to compromise on Talia Shire. He wanted Talia Shire. He wanted he wanted them the actors that he wanted. Carl Weathers wasn't really a well-known actor, but he just saw the charisma, and that's another thing about bad guys is although he was the bad guy at that time, his charisma. Was the selling point of Apollo Creed, and it's also and his presence, and it's the same for Darth Vader. How can someone be so charismatic in that? So my hat's off to David Prowse as to how he, you know what I mean. But obviously it's the James Earl Jones voicing the character. Gary Oldman is another one who brings such charisma to a dark bad guy, and brings him to life. And so, that I think that's the biggest selling point. And also, again, it's the challenge like Jaws. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the documentary, The Shark is Working. But it's just the struggle. They're at the budget 99 point something million. 99 point something thousand. They're touching on a million. They haven't got a million. We've just got to wrap this movie. We're not going to finish it. And there's these massive challenges with it, and it's the same for Star Wars with the filming and the miniatures and doing everything on things are made of stuff that will not hold up to the Tunisian weather. You've got stormtrooper suits that are literally, twisting, and that's what movie accuracy means, by the way, movie mistakes. Not many people know that.
Yeah. Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, it's those challenges, isn't it,
Yeah.
at that time that
Mhm.
makes movies special.
And to kind of like bring things into the present now, we
Yeah.
have a bunch of announcements. There's a bunch of things coming out for Disney Plus. We have Kenobi, we have Ahsoka, we have the Book of Boba Fett hitting the December. I wanted to get your thoughts as an artist. How do you feel about the current state of Star Wars in regards to cinema? Obviously, we finished with the sequel trilogy. And how do you feel
Mm.
about the future of Star Wars television?
Yeah. Okay. So the Mandalorian was really good. Hats off to Favreau for really sort of bringing it back to what we want to see
Mhm.
as fans. It's clear that Star Wars fandom is still a majority from the OT,
Yeah.
definitely, and we don't care if it panders to the old stuff. We want to see it.
Yeah.
So and that's what Favreau did, and that was amazing.
Hmm.
And I think it's the competition with Marvel. I think that's the biggest thing. I think, and
Hmm.
I know we're going the way of TV, and DC have already tried to go off against Marvel and
Hmm.
by
It
by
didn't work.
by killing Superman with a giant Ninja Turtle.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, so I think I think that's the biggest bugbear. I think Star Wars should do well. Maybe not so many series. Maybe sort of give us time to breathe and give us time to look forward to a story. So I'm more excited about Obi-Wan because it'll bring
That's my number
hopefully it's a
one.
story.
I can't wait, man. It's, as a person who, I was 19 years old when Phantom Menace hit. And to me, Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen, and Liam Neeson, and obviously Ian McDiarmid were the shining stars. They carried that trilogy. I mean, nobody can doubt.
Mm,
If there's one thing, even you take the most jaded prequel hater and you ask him what was the best thing about the prequels, Ewan McGregor, anybody will mention that. And it's funny that he's now approaching the age that he's portraying, right, in the Revenge of the Sith. He's just about more or
mm.
less that age. I can't wait how he's gonna interact with Anakin Skywalker as Vader in the Kenobi show, and then as Anakin Skywalker in the Ahsoka show. I can't wait for that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Um, would you agree that so Obi-Wan is in his exile?
Mm-hmm.
He's living on Tatooine. He's trying to be, as inconspicuous as he can.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, would it be a natural thing for Darth Vader or for Anakin to obsess over finding
Mm-hmm.
Obi-Wan because he's one of the last threats that they've got to get rid of? He's what's the word? What did the CIA use? What's that term? An unfinished,
An unfinished
you know,
job. He's one of the greatest Jedi Master. He's obviously a threat, right?
yeah, that's right. And then for Emperor Palpatine to be obsessed with finding
Mm-hmm.
Yoda,
Mm-hmm.
because he is also he's the most like classed as the most powerful,
Mm-hmm.
force being in that at that time. So would Emperor Palpatine not be obsessed with trying to find Yoda and set missions up to and battles and escapes and all kinds of things like that to go on in the Obi-Wan. So I'm hoping with it
Mm-hmm.
being Hugh McGregor and with they're just going to go for it and you're going to get OT and prequel
Come together. Yeah.
come together in just an absolute glorious,
Yeah.
Let's hope Favreau's got a hand in that as well.
There is a 2014, I believe, a book, a novel, which is now Parts of Legends, because I do a lot of book reviews on my channel. I love the Star Wars EU. And the reason I got into the books way back in the 90s is because I wanted to find out what happens next to Luke, Han, and Leia. And once I discovered that world that the books provide, I jumped into it. And to me, they expanded the prequels, all the added lore made it a lot more interesting. And here comes 2014, right before they put a hold and cut off that part of the Star Wars franchise and say, this is now Legends. One of the books that came out, I can't remember, it's either 2012 or 2014. It's called Kenobi. And it takes place on Tatooine, and it's him what you're trying to describe. They advertise it as this space western, and it's about lone Jedi Obi-Wan Kenobi trying to preserve the future of the Jedi. It had such amazing premise, but when we get to it, it doesn't work on any front because there is no PTSD. He's not responding to his comrades falling to the Sith, to Vader, to Emperor. There's no feelings of, oh man, I failed this kid. What he tells him on Mustafar, like, I have failed you, Anakin. There's none of those emotions. He participates with locals or trying to drive off some Tusken Raiders, and he gets tangled with this woman. Obviously, he can't have a relationship with her. But then he's neither in the vicinity of Luke trying to look after him. He's just there on some merry chase, and my argument was you replace any other Jedi or person with him, and you get a successful novel. It's written by a very competent author, but I felt like it didn't tap into what makes Kenobi tick, what makes him interesting. I think what you're proposing is a lot more interesting. We want to see that post effect of the episode 3 and see that emotional component. What is happening to him internally? Where's that hero? What is happening to him of saying, like, I have failed. There is no more hope. What else can I do, you know?
I think also, yeah, I think possibly expanded on Grand Moff Tarkin as well in that series, because I don't know, did you spot him at the end of Revenge of the Sith? He's the guy walking away and has spoken to him.
Yeah. They had the prosthetic thing trying to made the younger actor look like him. I actually enjoyed him quite a bit in Rogue One. Did you?
Yeah. I think that'd be great as a sort of an adjoining story to Rogue One and stuff like that. Yeah. Definitely. I think expanding on Obi-Wan is going to be, but yeah, not local struggles. I mean, what's that about? He's not David Carradine. He's not.
He has to be involved. He has to be in contact with Bail Organa or somehow with the earlier seeds of rebellion, and he needs to participate. He can't just be an old dude in the desert doing things. You know what I mean?
I think maybe he could be like sort of like dug out by Organa, and he could be reluctant to participate like Luke is at first because of his PTSD and the shame and everything about losing and stuff like that. But he can be convinced by Organa that there's still a fight. The kids are out. You've got to not watch over Luke, but Leia's out there. I've got Leia and stuff like that, and the threat is imminent all the time. They're searching. They are searching. That's what Vader is obsessed with, searching for those last remnants to try to destroy them. And then obviously, as the OT goes on, and he decides if that's not true, he wants to protect them. I do have a little bit of a point that's been raised in that level of damage that I've portrayed. Darth Vader dies from far less damage than at the hands of the Emperor. At the very end, and this is how I explain that. Darth Vader's a lot younger. He's driven by power. He's driven by hate. Amazing driving forces. That's what makes him so powerful. That's what makes him such a powerful tool for the Emperor to use. So, his survivability, is able to and to fight and to hold off that level of artillery. He's such a powerful figure. He held back an ocean in one of the games, apparently, my son said, and stuff like that. So he's got just an amazing level of power. At the end of Return of the Jedi, he's filled with love. He's vulnerable. He's given himself to Luke. And he's given his life to save Luke. And also, from the Emperor's power, all the damage is internal. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to. You don't have to bust the suit open to sort of, and that's our sort of. But he knows it's time to die. He lets himself go.
I 100% agree. When you come back to these movies as an adult, you reinterpret those scenes. I started realizing that the Return of the Jedi, the last scene, it's not about Luke's defeat of Vader. It's about him giving up his life for his father and trusting that the father will do the good thing. And the miracle of Vader's transformation back to Anakin Skywalker, back to the good side, is that he says, yes, I will give my life for it. He's not in that fight. When you see him fight Luke, and he's like, oh, so you have his sister. He is conflicted. Luke got to him. He reached out to him to say, Dad, don't do this. Come back to me, right? And throughout the entire scene, he's like, I can't do this. This is my son. And when the last scene where he grabs the Emperor and he throws him into that shaft as a kid. So I have unaltered version. I don't know if you've heard Star Wars the specialized editions. It's a very, very talented young man who went back and he restored the original Star Wars saga the way it was intended to see, without the added bonuses of special editions. And I loved as a kid that scene where Vader, he goes back and forth between his son and Vader, and he doesn't say anything. And it's such a powerful, what we've become this podcast about, when you set up a villain and you set up the moment and you dramatize it, you don't need him to say no. He's just there.
No.
And that turmoil, that
No.
anguish is inside of him, right?
Yeah. Well, that no part didn't come out till the final, till the Blu-rays, did it? That
2011,
no
I think, right?
Yeah, because I remember watching it, watching the revised series, and at the end of that, he didn't shout no, did he? But then along come the the DVD, the Blu-ray. And next thing he's going no, and I'm thinking, hang on, they've sampled that from Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
And they've put it back in, and then it's like, oh, you know what, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't work. And I generally like the changes they did. They cleaned up, they cleaned the alpha channels around all the ships. That's nice. Even I felt that the CGI X-Wings added to the first run on the original Death Star in episode 4, that works. It described the action better, it made it more epic and so forth. But in some decisions, I felt that George Lucas is like, it is time for you to step away from your painting. And it's going to lead into my next question is, sometimes an artist needs to say, this is done, I need to move on to something else. I'll give you my quick example, and then I transfer a question to you. Is I remember taking 6-hour live figure drawing classes. And I saw students around my class trying to finalize the piece and add some shading on this and stuff like that. For me, the only thing that was important is the moment. Here's the nude model, and she's performing, or a person, a guy. And here's my pen touching that canvas, and it is the process. You feel alive, you feel like your mind is on fire, and you channeling something through you onto the paper. And the moment you take away your pencil from the canvas, the art part of it is done. Art is a process. And when it's over, all you see is a document, is evidence of what's on there. I wanted to ask you, Stephen, as an artist, which I'm learning, a great artist in my eye, just for looking at that one piece, when do you feel that your piece is done and it's time to move on to something next?
That's a cracking question. For me, it's, you've got to know when it's time to stop. Otherwise, if you keep going back, you make it worse.
You rub a hole in it, right?
Yeah, you rub a hole in the. It's like with the pencil paper. You keep rubbing out. You're not happy. And then eventually, you have to go. Oh, and stop. I've got to stop, and then maybe start again. But then it's not as good as what you did it before, and you think, why did I? You know what I mean? So it's definitely know when to stop, and it's like, Terminator. Well, know when to stop, man.
Tell me that again. The latest one. Oh my God.
Okay, I take it you heard of Ricky Gervais.
No.
Okay, Ricky Gervais is a UK comedian. He's quite well known in the US. But
I might know him, but not by his name.
Okay, remember there's an American US series called The Office.
Yes.
Okay, that was originally written by Ricky Gervais, and it came out in the UK first with all UK actors, stuff like that. And this guy is he's a massive name, he's mega successful. And he stops writing and doing series. He just stops, he goes, that's it, I'm done. Let's move on, let's create a new story. And sometimes you might go back just to give you a little bit of a nice touch, like you might do a movie about the series, just to end it or something like that. But he rarely does that. He's done it once with one of his characters, and he did extras which starred Ben Stiller and loads of other actors, and they had them doing absolutely ridiculous things, stuff that this niche was. He was making these actors do step outside as Ben Stiller, but Ben Stiller was a total asshole. Okay, and he was this hateful person, and he gave Ben Stiller this amazing character to work with him. Like, this is going to be Ben Stiller, but like, I love this. This is what his attitude was. And so he did that throughout the series, but then he ended it. That was it. It's enough. And he moved on to something else. And I like that ethos. I like that ethos of, definitely, know when to stop.
I felt that the Star Wars Rebels show did a very wise thing and ended on the fourth season. It didn't overstay its welcome, and it kept it. It gave us a very nice character resolution for all the major players in the show, but obviously left an open question with Admiral Thrawn and Ezra Bridger going into unknown regions of space. I think that's the best way of doing it, where less is more. You're giving me enough to make me salivate and make me interested. Like, I want more of this. And then you hit pause and make fans excited for it. And several years after, you might continue if the demand is there.
I think a good example with this is like, I think the only one that achieved this, but I don't think he realised he achieved it, was Ridley Scott with Alien, and that was Prometheus. And the movie was hated at first when it first came out. But if you look at that movie, he actually did reinvent the alien, and he actually did put it in. What he did was he set the groundwork for a whole new species and more terrifying things. You know, the alien's done, but not this pathogen. This pathogen, this is what we're on about. Not the alien. The alien is just a tributary stream from a river of absolute terror, which had the promise of all these, just the worst kind of story you could ever think of. And so, after watching Prometheus for about the third or fourth time and thinking, wow, what a movie. What this guy has done is literally reset Alien, and I can't wait to see what's next. And then
Alien Covenant.
And then he panders to, people want to see the Alien, and he panders to fans and brings out Covenant, and it's just like,
that's something I feel that I personally feel that J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, all of these guys, they're not bad dudes. They're trying to make cinema. They're trying to make fans happy, be happy themselves. They are fans of these movies. They just sometimes don't always succeed. Sometimes the corporate aspect of it gets in the way. It's a movie made by a committee. There's so many factors and elements making a movie. There's so much politics behind the screens involved that we as audience don't even grasp. Sometimes they don't come out the way that we want, but I feel that what this new trilogy suffered from, and I enjoy it still, but I think what it suffered from is that it tried to cater to fans. The ship should never be steered by fandom or somebody else coming from outside and say, well, no, it should be about this. You can't please everyone this way. You should be focused. If you have anything to add to this, I had one question where I wanted to start wrapping things up, but if you want to add something to it, please go ahead.
I think, do a new movie, do a new story. The Old Republic, that might be interesting.
That would be fun.
But when I say directors, when you're talking about directors and stuff like that, what's the best example of let's do a new movie, let's do a new story, let's do 1912. I mean, my God, what a movie. I came out of that movie feeling so emotional, I'm thinking right now, this and that movie put me back to when I was young and I was seeing Predator and Alien and all these new movies, a new groundbreaking movie that is done in, I think it's 3 takes. It is continuously filmed, and you can't see.
It was fantastic. We saw it in theaters here with my younger brother. It blows your top off. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, and like another one, Saving Private Ryan and stuff like that. And I think that makes these so special, is when every so often a movie will come along and it'll just be, but you it's like Steven Spielberg. I think he's got it right. Steven Spielberg.
He's a rare talent.
Let's do one film and let's move on to another story. So what you're actually getting is you're getting all the flavor of Steven Spielberg. When you're watching a Steven Spielberg movie, but it's a different story. It's different actors. It's different tensions. It's not overlaid with effects. Although I actually haven't seen the one that has what's it called?
Ready Player One.
Ready Player One. I've not seen that.
Yeah, me neither. I didn't get to it yet.
Yeah, I've not got to that yet and stuff like that. But another groundbreaker. Oh my God.
It's funny talking about also his later work when he's already in his prime in terms of his years. He's getting there, in terms of years. We were talking about Steven Spielberg later work. When my family saw Munich, And Steven Spielberg, obviously being a Jewish, person, I'm Jewish as well, and he's touching this is a very sensitive topic that's not comfortable and it's not
Yeah.
easy, right? And you look at it, and he's not playing parts here. He's not playing favorites. He's not justifying either side. And to strike that perfect balance and just to show the human tragedy of it, that people are murdering people. It's not about Jews or Arabs or anybody else. It's people. It's brother killing brother. It's Canaan and Abel.
Yeah.
And when a director in his twilight years is able to command your attention like this, it completely blows you away. And it shows you that cinema is so much more about thrills or plot twists or a consequential death. Over here, like Game of Thrones loves getting rid of its cast members. Spielberg is a rare animal where he knows how to balancing everything. Where it comes to the end, you're like, wow. And it leaves you think the credits roll and you're still with the movie. You're still thinking about it.
Well, who does his casting? Is it Jackie Birch does his casting? No, she cast Fox, but she's obviously a well-known caster, and she's like a really she must be so talented to be able to spot these talents. But that is just so well acted by the cast, and I think a lot of it is down to the cast. In just how they participate in telling the story, the timing. Also of how they convey the emotion and stuff like that. And the Australian actor, what's his name? He did the original Hulk.
Eric Bana.
Eric Bana. That's when I recognised him.
I love him. Yeah.
That's when I said now he can act.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And it took me a long time to sort of like recognise Brad Pitt as a really good character actor.
Yeah, when you are watching a new movie and you can't recognize the actor, he completely transforms. You credit the director, you credit the actor, because they are creating a new character. You don't recognize the face is there, but you don't recognize him. Steven, I wanted to thank you very much for coming and just doing this in the spur of a moment. You are just a wonderful artist. I had so much fun talking to you, just connected with another Star Wars fan, with another person who is so creative and so passionate about what he's doing. And I want to wrap up with this question here.
Okay.
What would your advice be to aspiring new model makers and creators and artists?
Just go with your heart, basically. Build with your heart, and just see where it goes. And just don't be afraid to explore things and and stuff like that. And try not to overthink things as well. There's a lot of there's a lot of passion in flying blind and watching something develop. And it's like a canvas. The painting's always there. This one I did.
Let's see it.
Clip was always there.
Oh man, you just hit the feels, man. The good, the bad, and the ugly. One of the greatest cinematic masterpieces, man. Wow.
Clip was always there, but I just chipped away the rough edges. But it's the same for. If I just show you real quick, this is what you haven't seen on the wall. So this is Braveheart's hero sword.
Dope. That is so good, man.
Okay, that is made from container wood. Just a plank of container wood carved.
I can't tell from here that what material is this. It looks like a real sword.
Yeah, but it gets me into conventions.
Wow.
I'm allowed into conventions because it's just made of wood.
Yeah, it's not metal,
like
right?
it's it's not metal, no. I've got all kinds. I've got Rambo's bow that I made. There's all kinds in here. It's just like a cave.
And guys, notice Steven is going through all of it. He's not just stuck in the Star Wars world. He's stuck in all cinema world. He goes from Braveheart to Predator to Commando to Gladiator. I'm seeing that awesome helmet in the background. I'm like, yay, Gladiator! I saw it in theaters.
Hamish's hammer.
Yeah.
If you can see that.
Yeah.
I'll just show you this.
That's dope.
This is Hamish's axe.
Nice. Wow, man.
That's made from MDF.
Mm-hmm. And just to continue that question for the aspiring young creators, when somebody is really young and they're first trying their hand at something, and sometimes there is a frustration of not succeeding, of things not working your way. How would you go about telling them to tackle those frustrations that like things are not coming out?
Oh, do you know something? If you leave something alone, because like it's going back to that conversation we just had a couple of minutes ago about not leaving alone and just and keeping it going, and it can sometimes get worse.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's better to just take a day or two and then come back to it fresh with a fresh perspective. And I've got a little tip as well. When I'm doing artwork or I'm building props, I listen to movie scores.
Nice.
And when I was doing the Braveheart weapons and the shields, and I was making the kilts and everything like that, I was listening to the soundtrack,
which is wonderful.
Braveheart.
I would say one of the best soundtracks in cinematic history.
Yeah, and it's the same for when I was developing the Expendables. I've got a group called the Expendables, and it's all the guys.
Yeah.
And we were just listening to music from the Expendables, and that, I know it's not the most critically acclaimed kind of thing, but it's a ramp and it takes you back to
it's a love letter to fans of our generation. It's the ultimate testosterone salad. It's like everything in it. I was so happy Van Damme swallowed his ego and he popped up in the movie for Stallone just to twist that neck. I was like, yes, that's awesome. It was so great.
I just loved it. And for people who are building props and stuff like that, just don't give up, and also don't be put off by people who criticize, because at the same time, sometimes it's good to get a little bit of criticism, good to get a little bit of a perspective on stuff like that. But don't take it to heart. Just keep going, because at the end of the day, people can sit there and do this all day long, but as long as you just keep going and keep moving forward, keep doing your thing, you make it.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm no big success. I haven't got a penny to rub together and stuff like that. But what the satisfaction I get is just the love of doing it, and the love of bringing smiles and making people happy or making people laugh or all kinds of things, just stuff like that.
I think that's the strongest message of this podcast. How Rocky put it, how you put it is, no matter what, keep going forward, and it always will be overwhelmingly positive community to lift you up, and you say that you're doing fine, and sometimes give you a constructive criticism, which is also good, without being toxic, without putting you down, saying, hey, if you try this over here, maybe this will work, or maybe you need to step away, put this project off for a couple of days and return to it. All of that stuff matters, and thank you so much for just being like I would say an authority on this kind of stuff. It's amazing art that you do. And Stephen, please remind the audience where they can find you. What are your channels? What are your links? Where can fans can see you? And obviously, I'll also drop all the links in the video.
Okay, well, you can find us on Instagram under Imperial Order 66 UK, and also on Facebook at Imperial Order 66 UK, and even on I do a lot of stuff from my own wall. And I'm always posting stuff up on the Replica Pop forum. I'm not massive on social media, so I don't have a Twitter account. I don't have an Instagram account, but one of the guys from the group does the Instagram. And I just handle the Facebook side of things because I'm old.
Not that old. I'm seeing a lot of juice in there. Stephen, thank you so much. Guys, thanks for watching this podcast. Please, follow up with Stephen. Check out his links. He is a wonderful, wonderful artist. I had tons of fun talking to you. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, follow me up. Hopefully, if we have time, if opportunity permits, I would gladly have you back on here. I love talking to Star Wars fans, people coming from all walks of life who don't always agree with us, who have a completely different worldview and enjoy things that I might not necessarily not even know about. And I think this is what it's all about. And like you, Stephen, said, it's all about lifting each other up, getting up there and continuing doing your work and continuing being inspired. Guys, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.
Be good.